Now, before I share my story, I want to invite you to stand up and dance with me. Don't worry, it's just more of organized arm movements. I'm going to stand on this chair because I'm a little vertically challenged. Now, this is something I do with my students in my middle school visual arts room to help them remember line concepts. And who knows, maybe after today, you'll bring something like this to your students too. Now, the first move in our line dance is horizontal line. Who can tell me which way do horizontal lines go? They go side to side, so you're going to do the horizontal hula. Go horizontal, 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 line. The next move in our line dance is vertical lines. Which way do vertical lines go? They go up and down. Very good. So you're going to go vertical, 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 line. The third movement in our line dance is diagonal line. Which way do diagonal lines go? They go corner to corner. So what is it going to be? Disco. Yes. You're going to go diagonal, 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 line. Now the next two movements are a little more complicated. Who in the crowd knows what a contour line is? What is it? It's an outline. So if I was going to make a dance move for an outline, contour line, what's that going to look like? Oh, I just saw someone getting very sassy with it, yes? Now you can get as sassy as you'd like. You're going to start up at the top, and you're going to do contour line. Very good, very nice. Now the last move in our dance is cross contour line. So contour line is the outside. What's cross contour line? It's going to be that inside line. So you're going to go cross contour line. So let's start this from the beginning with our horizontal hula. And I want you to say it along with me as loud as you can. So we have horizontal, 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 line, vertical, 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 line, diagonal, 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 line, contour line, cross contour line. Give yourselves a round of applause. Have a seat. As I'm sure you could tell by those smooth moves, I've been dancing my whole life. I was even captain of my high school's dance team in my hometown of Flint, Michigan. Where are my Michigan people? Yeah! Okay. Although my experience as a student was not always successful, I was that kid getting those letters from the office warning about too many absences. I also earned my fair share of C's and D's along the way, even though I love to read and write. Imagine having to explain to your parents why you're getting a D in 6th grade reading, and your math teacher calls because they're constantly having to confiscate your latest R.L. Stine novel you're trying to sneakily read under the table. Yeah, not the best of conversations. By 11th grade, I was placed in honors English, and for the first time, I felt truly engaged at school. It was also the year I made captain of the dance team. And where English got me hooked on learning, dance is where I got hooked on teaching. I love dreaming up dance routines as we paired movement to music through choreography. I loved the way it felt to step forward and try to be better through performance with a group of people. It was an exciting place where I felt for the first time the confidence to become a leader. I literally had a set of peers following me as I and the other captains led 8 counts. This was an entirely new experience for me. Up until that point, I was the kid at the back of the class, mediocre at best, trying to stay awake in whatever class was after lunch. Dance gave me the opportunity to take center stage, to try harder, and to want to become better. But there's value in my struggles too. My challenges as a student gave me the resilience that makes me a better teacher and leader. They also give me proof to my students that your past struggles do not predict your future success. I mean, look at where I'm today, right? And that may be the biggest lesson that I've learned from all, that it's often what we model to our students that's far more important than what we actually teach them. But this took some time, and it wasn't until I was faced with losing my job that I actually realized this. When I decided to become a visual arts teacher, how many other visual arts teachers in the room? Anyone else? Okay, there's one. You maybe got this question too. When I decided to become a teacher of visual arts, people would ask me, well, aren't you worried that art's like the first thing to get cut in a budget crisis? But I shook that off because I knew I was going to be the antithesis of that stereotypical, hippy-dippy art teacher letting their kids do whatever in the classroom. You know the one I'm talking about, the one you suspect might be eating glue? And I went into my first job with a strict, discipline-based arts education curriculum, standardized outcomes, and pacing guides. No one was going to accuse me of being anything other than professional. And I thought for sure that this approach would shield me from any potential cuts. Then, in 2008, everything changed. Michigan was hit particularly hard in the economic crash, as GM and other automakers nearly went bankrupt. School budget cuts were brutal. Then I got my first pink slip, which I'll never forget. I remember thinking it was probably coming because, guess what? Arts programming was being cut. But I had a conversation with my principal, and he told me, I think you're going to squeak by without one. The very next day, he and the assistant principal approached me in the hallway as I was hanging up artwork during my prep and asked me to sign this form. For those of you who've ever gotten a pink slip, isn't it funny that they're not even pink? They're just these white sheets of paper with pretty stark wording saying, you're being terminated from your current position. And seeing that black wording on white paper with these two men towering over me asking me to sign this form, it sent me over the edge. I signed the form, waited for them to turn the corner, ducked into the nearest empty classroom, and broke down and cried. I felt like a complete failure. I had tried so hard to be taken seriously and to be this teacher that would somehow be saved from a situation like this. But I wasn't. I was powerless, and all I could do was just hope and wait for a call back. Luckily, I was called back. But over the course of the next 18 months, I received 2 additional pink slips. By the third one, I just started to joke about it because it felt so ridiculous. And really looking back on the experience, this moment is pivotal in my teaching career. Before the pink slips, I knew how to teach, but it wasn't until afterwards that I was forced to dig into why I teach. Because art is an elective, I'm reliant on my students wanting to be there. After some reflection, I realized I didn't really feel like I had control over my classroom or my curriculum. I had thought being this strict, standards-based teacher would ensure my success, but it hadn't and it didn't. Simply because I was trying to be this teacher I thought I was supposed to be, but who really wasn't me. So I started experimenting. I started going out on the internet and looking for other teachers to try to help improve my craft. I was so inspired that I began blogging and presenting at conferences and sharing with others too. I began publishing student work on a website called Sonia and building their digital portfolios. And in this way, I showed my students the lasting impact art can have by establishing my own digital footprint and empowering them to do the same. I also transformed my curriculum. Instead of one-size-fits-all projects that yield similar outcomes, my students are now challenged to investigate themes using methods and materials of their choosing. Instead of being required to mimic masters like Van Gogh or Picasso, they are treated as masters in their own right. Now, I act more as a mentor to my students while they're in the driver's seat for their creative journey. And through all of this, I recaptured the joy and excitement that got me hooked on teaching in the first place. Plus, by using my approach, my students are empowered. But ultimately, it was because I empowered myself first. I let go of notions that being this strict teacher was my only way to success. Instead, I embraced the creativity and freedom art has to allow my students to see themselves as the leaders. And my students have amazed me with their response. One student, her name is Anna. She was new to our district in 7th grade, and when she entered into my art class, one of her first essays very plainly explained, "I am not good at art. I am not an artist." I remember how her long red hair would drape on either side of her face as she'd have these staring contests with blank white sheets of paper before finally plunging into the work. And her work did start a bit timid at first, but with encouragement, she became more creative and adventurous. Then she created this drawing inspired by a technique we had looked at from an illustrator from the Wall Street Journal named Noli Novak. We posted it on Art Sonia, and I thought to myself, hey, why don't I share this with Noli on Twitter? Noli not only went and viewed Anna's art, but she left her a comment encouraging Anna to continue on with her creativity. That moment transformed my classroom. No longer were my students making work for me or for a grade, but they had a wider audience willing to connect with their work. By 8th grade, Anna won a national gold medal at the Scholastic Art Awards and was honored at Carnegie Hall in New York City. And her success has inspired other students to push their creativity further. She paved the way before them by modeling that same confidence and creativity that I finally embraced in my own teaching. And that contagious creativity has spread beyond our classroom walls. Our Art Sonia gallery has received over 150,000 views. My classroom blog gets about 9,000 views per week. And I even made it here today because of an online connection I made with my friend and fellow teacher, Chris Parker from Texas, on Twitter. Plus, it excites my students when they Google themselves. You know your kids Google themselves too. When they Google themselves and they see their art awards come up and blog posts where I'm talking about their work, or when we get an email or a shout out from a teacher about how our classroom has impacted theirs, even when they're half a world away. I was forced to rethink my approach to teaching because of too many pink slips and the need to become a better teacher. I never thought it could impact other classrooms too. But above all, it's my students who bring my work to life. I may be a model for them, but they are my muses. So, if you were to come into my classroom on any given day, we may be dancing to learn vocabulary, making new masterworks, or sharing our work on a global scale. But whatever it is, we're doing it unapologetically, with our whole selves, and having a whole lot of fun in the process. I may not have always been the best student, but I'm one heck of a teacher. However, I only came that way by living the simple adage that the best way to lead is by example. even if it means dancing on a chair. Thank you.